our podcast. I'm your host, Heather Hellmann, and we are going to dive down so many different topics. But the most important is where energy meets its purpose and how carrying your spark through the dark to overcome so many challenges in our everyday lives. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about challenges, spirituality. We're going to talk about open authenticity and our identities. We're going to talk about energy and spirituality and dive down rabbit holes together. But most importantly, we are going to share real life stories about how myself included found the spark and carried it through some of the darkest moments of life to be here now, to be in alignment with living my life and soul purpose so I can have a chance at inspiring others and be a pillar of light for those who need it. It's not for everyone, and that's okay. We're not here to win approvals. We are here to help those who truly are seeking it. And it's going to be educational. It's going to be insightful. We're going to add a co-host throughout the second part of the series, and I'm excited to introduce her. She's coming soon. She has her own program called The Standard, and when The Standard and the Spark got in alignment, it became true magic. So buckle up. We're going to get started, and thank you so much for joining me at this point on the journey. I used to think that the spark was the pretty parts of our life, the light, the excitement, the thing that people see when you're inspired, magnetic, creative, and alive. But I've been doing a lot of reflecting on that. Maybe that's why it's been so hard to come back to the microphone and record my podcast. I really felt lost on translation as to what the spark meant, because the spark is the part of you that actually helps you survive. It's in the moments when you don't know who you are, and it's the only light that keeps you going. It's the part that says, even when things are falling apart, when the body breaks, when the identity cracks, and when the world gets too loud to handle, people are going to misunderstand you. Life is going to ask you, who are you ready to become? And you need to make a choice. And that is where the spark ignites. And this is what we're going to talk about. I used to talk about just empowerment in your brand and in your business because that's what I was comfortable in. I had a long career in marketing, and I'm really good at strategy. I'm really good at the creative aspects of organization and problem solving, which somehow translated into a great marketing career for the last, I don't know, almost 20 years, which is exciting when I sit back and think about it. But it's not the core identity of who I am. I was always a very smart girl. I was in STEM programs. I loved science and math. I loved engineering coursework. I ended up working for a large engineering firm, a big software company that was a part of it. And I found my way somehow unraveling into this path now. And what it's done for me is given me clarity, it's given me understanding, and it's given me purpose. Purpose I didn't even know that I deserved to have. And how many of you have felt that? Like, you know that you're here to do great things, but you just don't feel that you deserve where that leads to. I was one of those people. I was someone who was afraid to get out of bed because my nervous system was so fried from the chaos and the trauma. And, it started in my early teen years. I had a lot of different friction at home. I have great parents, but they can't protect you from the world. And sometimes they can't protect you from their own trauma, right? And while I am at a place where I have a wonderful relationship with them, during those years, it started kind of there. At the age of 17, I experienced something that not a lot of people do. I was basically pronounced dead at the scene of a nearly fatal car accident. I ended up being airlifted to a hospital that was almost 2 hours away. And by the time all was said and done, people on the ground didn't know if I was alive or dead. Luckily, I'm here to talk about it. But little did people know that that was a very big piece of the very first time that my life came unraveled, unglued. I was stuck in this loss of self. Everything that I had wrapped around my identity at the age of 17, where I was going, what I was going to do, who I was going to be, all shattered in the moment of opening my eyes and taking my first breath back to this life again. And I never dealt with it. I couldn't walk. I had lost my scholarship to school. I had to get late admission to go to another one. I had so many different battles that I raged because of it. I saw things that at the time made me feel crazy, made me feel delusional, made me question everything around me, and also made me super bitter that what I had thought perfect world that I was creating was no longer that. And I had these scars and these battle wounds and this mental trauma. I am still working on overcoming my fear of water because of that accident. Water was involved because it was a crazy rainstorm, and being ejected from the car, I had my breath taken away from me by the water hitting my face. It's weird the things that you remember when you go through an experience like that. But it's true to a fault of it was very traumatizing to me, and it still is. So when I think about where I'm at and how I got here today, it's not just about a certain discipline that requires morning routines and gratitude journaling. It took real hard come to Jesus moments to get clear, to get sober, to do some hard work. It was more than just telling myself that I needed to. It was about telling the truth after years of living in a performance mode, choosing not to react when old versions of me would have burned it all down to the ground, starting over and over and over again when nobody is clapping, when you've felt so much shame and guilt in your own life that you don't even know how to take the step forward. So when I decided to sit down and build out this era, this season of the spark, it was not with anything that was left in total ruin or total chaos. I am not looking at trying to clean up what the past was. I'm actually thanking the past for getting me to exactly where I'm at right now. I didn't think I'd ever say that. There's parts of my past that I've acknowledged that, for better or for worse, I was young. I had no idea who I was. And it came with a lot of problems because I was choosing out of fear. I was choosing out of survival. And I was choosing out of my own almost bitterness to do the things that ended up honestly being ripped apart at the seams and all for the greater good. I wouldn't have gone through hardship. I wouldn't be so relatable to those who are looking for peace now. The thing is, it's about finding the common ground. It's about taking root. It's about understanding your lane and where to drive in it without worrying about everything else outside of the world trying to tear at you. It's a really hard thing to do. It requires a daily almost check in with your confidence, with your self esteem, with your self worth, and saying, how are you going to handle this? The funny thing is I used to be so ashamed of the past that I had. Then I had to realize the dark is not the enemy. In fact, this is where most people get confused. Every single one of us has a good and a bad side to us. Bad reactions, bad choices, bad thought patterns, judgments, projections. Most of those are caused by trauma. And in today's world, if you don't have trauma, then I'm not sure how you survived till now, because we have lived in a world that is unlike anything else. And at the age that I'm at of almost being 44, it is insane to think about the experiences just as society has gone through the different wars, COVID, 9/11, the recession, the crash of the stock markets. I mean, we have been under siege pretty much since I got to this earth. And I'm not really sure, that it's going to stop anytime soon. I don't get involved in politics. I think that that's a distraction. I think that's a waste of intelligence. And once upon a time, I used to live and breathe by it. So it can tell you how far a person can change once you start to unfuck the ideas of what everybody else has placed on you. I mean, there are so many different things that, especially we as women, carry layers and masks. And that's the thing. That's where I think we get off course, because I don't think the dark is always here to destroy us. I don't think those masks are here to make us all fake or performance based. I think that when the dark is a place where performance finally stops, is when we can really hold the idea of who we are, what our true natural identity at our core is. It's where the image of what others think of us breaks, and the nervous system tells the truth before the mouth ever can. It's where the parts of us that meet ourselves that we kept trying to outrun or hide or not acknowledge. And I know that doesn't sound inspirational, and maybe it's not polished enough, but the internet version of inspiration. But I think the real miracle is that if we never enter the dark, then we never learn how to see our spark. So when I think about everything I've experienced, there were seasons where I didn't need more advice. I didn't need a reason to believe that I was still here. And I think a lot of people come back from a near-death experience and they're like, oh my God, I feel so renewed. I've got this extra air of life and I'm living, and oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. I wish that would have been the path. I wish that would have been the conditioning. I chose so differently. I was in this selfish spiral I was surrounded by shame. That car accident was tied to a lot of things that happened. A lot of people don't know. I was 17. It was 6 days before my 18th birthday. I had just graduated high school. I was on my way to go see one of my best friends who worked in our very small town when I hydroplaned, rolled the car 3 times, and got thrown out the driver's side window. You already know the aftermath of that story. So what people don't know is what happened that I was driving fast and that I was angry and why I was on my way to go see that girl at the bank in town, my high school sweetheart, who I had been on again, off again for most of my senior year because we knew we weren't going to stay together because I was going away to school and he was staying there. And he was older than I was. Well, he had brought home and brought to my attention some very interesting news. And, when you find out that the person you had considered most of high school your best friend was now not only seeing your ex, but going to have a baby with him. It kind of changed the whole dynamic of what you were thinking. And so there was a lot of animosity. My whole world was already starting to come unglued right before I even got into that car. Was I angry? Yes. Did I feel like I disconnected from the girl that I had become? Completely. I definitely think that my ego has been one of the biggest problems that I have had throughout the duration of my early part of life. Okay. Getting too big for my own britches was something that, they joke about, they make a stigma about, but it's true. My ego took front and center for a really long time. And I let that be the performer. I let that be the thinker. I let that be the chooser. And it led me down a very selfish, jaded path. I wasn't healing. I wasn't addressing the things that I had gone through. I wasn't addressing the reasons why I felt punished by God for even being in that car accident. There were chapters where I had to learn the difference between being powerful and being protected. And in that one, I just wanted to be almost disappear. Also kind of confused the idea of healing with staying in motion. As long as I was moving forward, I must be healing. That is the biggest lie that I think a lot of us tell ourselves. Put on that smile, keep going. You've got this. That's what society wants you to do. They want you to live in this fear and shame, guilt arena. They want that layer to always stay there. They want you to mask up. It's an easier way to control you because you're living in fear. Your nervous system is out of control. You don't ever feel like anything around you can trust. You don't even trust yourself. The thing is the person you become after the fire, this version of you that only gets born after life stops asking you to be impressive and starts asking you to be honest, that version is not louder. It's not vengeful. It's not burn it to the ground. And believe you me, there is a part of me, an old version of me that used to burn it to the ground, push things away, and not care at the outcome or the results. And really, I started learning that peace was my superpower. And peace became the understanding of learning through my traumas that I don't always have to be go, 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 that I don't always have to be chaos, that I don't have to fly by the seat of my pants and hope for the best. I will tell you that from an intention standpoint, I don't think it was very often that I chose to hurt others. I think hurting others came naturally because of the way I was living. And it's a shame that you don't get an opportunity to thank or apologize to a lot of people who experience that version of me. I hope that one day they realize that the peace that I have now is because of them and because I wanted to be better than I was before. It's hard to explain when you become calmer, slower, when you felt like you've been so misunderstood for such a very long time by almost everyone around you. When you figure out that you have boundaries and you no longer have to perform or ask of others what they're not willing to give back to you. There's a time and a place for discernment and grace. I don't have to use things out of desperation. And I have peace and I don't have to worry about proving, performing, or honoring something that I didn't sign up for. So with that, I found that there was many versions of myself, many facets. But the one thing that I can tell you that's always held true is that there was a spark, a call, a feeling inside me that wouldn't settle, that wouldn't break, that wouldn't back down. And that girl, I'm so grateful for because every version of me that has arrived at this point, she was working through processing pain and didn't even know she had to work through it. I moved to California around 2014, 2015. In that time was the first real understanding of who I was becoming. I had finally broke out of the Midwestern box that I had been a part of. And there there's all these predisposed requirements that people put on you. You have to be married, you have to have a kid, you have to have a career, you have to go to college, you have to be close with your family, you have to live and breathe and have plaid family pictures around the holidays. And, all of those things are thoughts that someone out there feels super connected to. For me, I couldn't have felt more displaced, more out of place, and more performative. I really didn't ever want those things. And once upon a time, before I was divorced, I thought I had dreams of achieving that. I would always, always, always have wanted to be in California. It's just something I've known since I was 3 years old. Once upon a time, I wanted to be a lawyer. I'm glad that I changed that path. I ended up getting my studies done in psychology and sociology because I understood that there's a reason behind the way that people do things in patterns. And when you think about it, it's probably what ended up making me so good at marketing and marketing strategies because I understand the reason why people do things in a rhythm. I understand the seasons of change. I understand the emotional evocation as to why people do things and why they don't. So it made a career path for me without even trying. And I love problem solving. I love to reverse engineer all the possible outcomes of a certain plan or a certain storyline to see how it unfolds. With that, there comes this whole intersect of knowing who you are, knowing what you're good at, and learning how to apply it to help others. And it took a very long time to arrive at it. I had my first ever, I'm an entrepreneur through and through, a visionary for sure. I see things that once upon a time I thought I was crazy for seeing. But now that I understand that I have done the work, traveled the world to work with energy healers and meet in with doctors and have studies and understand longevity, understand neurosciences. I'm not saying I'm an expert in any of those fields. All I'm simply communicating is that I have done my best to understand the certain key elements that all correlate back to energy, which all correlate back to your inner spark and how we work through things, how we expand that spark, how we amplify it, how you align to things that matter for your life and your soul purpose. I have studied over 400 hours worth of energy healing, the planets and the placements that correlate with astrology, understanding human design, and I'm continuing all of these studies. It's an ongoing thing. I love doing energy work. I love being able to communicate certain things that are inside each one of us. We all have our own unique blueprint, stamped from the moment you took your first breath of air here on this planet. And they are designed to tell you what your core strengths are, your blind spots are, how you interact with others, how you should and shouldn't with some people, and where you should really take that. And because of that, I was able to unlock some of the mysteries of myself and really start digging in on the things I needed to heal. That car accident was one of the biggest, deepest wounds in my arsenal. I really carried that super painfully. And I'm so happy to be on this side and actually talk about it, talk through it, and honor the fact that it happened. The scars are on all over my body. They remind me how real that experience was, but they do one thing more for me now. They remind me how grateful I am to actually be alive, to have this opportunity to walk a harder path, to overcome challenges and pivots and curveballs and choices at my own destructive design so I could be better, so I could be here and offer a vehicle, an outlet, a process for people to understand that they can still remember their own worth, that they can still take control of their future, that they can learn to outgrow survival mode, that they can have peace. Peace, working on your mind, working on your body, brings that soul alignment. It's one of the most powerful things we can do as humans. Getting your head right, working on the trauma, working out your body, feeling your body right. I have worked so hard to be here, and I'm proud of it. I'm not going to neglect that there were times that I did neglect everything about me, hid away, shrank away, dulled my shine, and I've let others take my magic over and over and over again. But in this season, my spark is going to be radiant, even in the dark. So with that, I want to leave you here. I'm so glad you're along on this journey. I look forward to bringing stories of real life with other people that have been on this journey and working now in alignment towards building their purpose, their passion, defining their clarity, and living at their highest level of self. So thank you for joining. This is the Spark Podcast. I'm your host, Heather Hellmann, and I look forward to hearing how you held your spark even in the dark.